Sunlight poured into the grand chamber. It was warm and felt real. Ramses II opened his eyes. He saw the high ceilings of his palace in Rameses. The walls were painted with images of gods and great battles. He remembered these walls. He remembered the smell of incense in the air. He was home. But something felt different. A strange stillness hung in the air, a quiet that was too perfect. He felt a deep sense of peace, but also a small nagging question in the back of his mind, a question he could not yet name. It was like waking from a dream, only to find yourself in another, more vivid one. He felt young and strong, his body filled with the energy of his prime years, not the tired frame he remembered from his last days. He stood and walked to the balcony. Below him, the city was alive. People walked through the streets, boats sailed on the great Nile River. The sounds of a busy capital city filled his ears. It was all just as it should be. The great temples stood tall against the blue sky. The markets were full of life. He was Pharaoh, the ruler of this great land. He was Ramses the Great, beloved by the gods. Yet as he watched a group of children playing below, he saw one of them fall, and then for a brief moment the child flickered like a candle flame in a strong wind before becoming solid again. Ramses blinked. It must have been the bright sun playing tricks on his eyes. But the image stayed with him, a tiny crack in a perfect world. Everything around him was a testament to his power and his legacy. The statues bearing his face, the grand monuments built in his name, they were all here. He had commanded their creation, and here they stood, magnificent and eternal. He felt the familiar weight of his responsibilities settle upon his shoulders. He was the guardian of Ma'at, the principle of order and truth. It was his duty to protect his people and uphold the divine balance of the cosmos. But how could he protect them from something he could not understand? This feeling of strangeness was a shadow he could not grasp, a whisper he couldn't quite hear. It was a subtle discord in the grand symphony of his kingdom. He returned inside, his mind troubled. He called for his advisors, for his queen, Nefertari. They came, their faces familiar, their voices a comfort. They spoke of harvests, of tributes, and of ceremonies to honor the gods. They treated him with the reverence he expected. But their eyes, he noticed, sometimes held a distant, empty look. Their movements were sometimes too precise, too repetitive. It was as if they were actors playing a part they had played 1,000 times before. He asked them about the flickering child, but they looked at him with confusion, assuring him that all was well in the kingdom of Egypt. Their reassurances did little to calm the growing storm inside him. Days turned into weeks. Ramses II ruled his kingdom as he always had. He led ceremonies at the temple of Amun-Ra. He inspected the work on his great monuments. He held court and listened to the problems of his people. Life was a perfect routine, a cycle of sunrises and sunsets that never seemed to change, yet the small oddities continued. He would see a flight of birds freeze in the sky for a heartbeat. He would hear a conversation repeat itself, word for word, from one day to the next. These were glitches in the fabric of his world, small tears in the grand tapestry of his reality. He started to feel like he was living the same day over and over, with only minor variations. The world was his, and yet it was not. He would walk through the bustling markets, and while the people bowed to him, their interactions with each other seemed scripted. A merchant would drop a basket of figs at the exact same time every morning. A guard would patrol the same path, his footsteps falling in the exact same places. Ramses began to test his world. He would change his route, ask unexpected questions, or try to disrupt the patterns. When he did, he was met with a moment of confusion. People would stop, their faces blank, before resuming their activities as if nothing had happened. It was deeply unsettling, a sign that the order he cherished was not natural, but manufactured. One evening, as he stood by the Nile, he saw a flash of light in the sky. It was not a star or a bolt of lightning. It was a brilliant geometric pattern of pure energy that appeared and vanished in an instant. No one else seemed to notice it. The guards standing nearby remained at their posts, their eyes fixed straight ahead. Ramses felt a chill run down his spine. It was a sign from the gods, perhaps. But what did it mean? Was it a warning, or was it something else entirely? He began to suspect that the gods he worshipped were not the only powerful beings watching over him. There was another power at play here, one that was far more present and far more strange. These events pushed him to seek answers in the ancient texts and sacred scrolls. He spent long hours in the temple libraries, searching for prophecies or omens that could explain the strangeness of his world. He read of creation myths, of the gods shaping the world from chaos. He read of the afterlife, of the journey of the soul through the underworld, but nothing he read could account for the repeating events, the blank stares, or the flashes of light in the sky. It was as if his reality was a story written by an unknown author, and he was just a character following a pre-written path. The Pharaoh, the most powerful man on earth, was beginning to feel powerless. Far beyond the simulated sun and sky of Ramses' Egypt, in the stark reality of the year 3018, the engineers watched. They were the creators of this world, the architects of this grand illusion. They called themselves Ra, a tribute to the ancient sun god whose power they now wielded. But their power did not come from magic or divinity. It came from a quantum computer of unimaginable complexity. This machine was their universe, and within it they were gods. They sat in darkened control rooms, surrounded by shimmering holographic displays that showed every detail of the simulated world. They could see everything, from the grand sweep of the Nile to the smallest grain of sand. These engineers, the Ra, were masters of reality. With a thought, they could alter the weather, change the course of the river, or mend a glitch in the simulation. They could quantum teleport, allowing them to appear anywhere in the world in an instant. They could walk among the people of ancient Egypt as silent observers, invisible to all. Or they could take on an avatar, a physical form within the simulation, and interact with their creations directly. They were the ultimate voyeurs, watching history unfold not as it was, but as they designed it to be. Their power was absolute, their presence unseen. Ramses's world was their laboratory, and he was their most fascinating subject. Their purpose was not simply entertainment, it was a grand experiment. For centuries, humanity had wondered what made us who we are. Was it our memories, our DNA, our choices? The Ra sought to answer these questions. They had collected the genetic codes of countless beings from Earth's past, humans, animals, and plants. Inside their quantum computer, they could resurrect these beings, giving them new life in simulated worlds. Ramses II was one such experiment. They had his DNA, and from it they had cloned him. They had even reconstructed his memories from historical data, creating a perfect copy of the great Pharaoh. But the engineers were not a single mind. They were a collective of brilliant individuals, each with their own ideas and motivations. Some were pure scientists, interested only in the data. They watched Ramses' growing awareness with clinical detachment, recording his every reaction. Others were more like artists, captivated by the beauty and drama of the world they had built. They would sometimes subtly intervene, creating new challenges or mysteries for Ramses to solve, just to see what he would do. They were the gods of this machine, and like the gods of old, they were sometimes benevolent, sometimes cruel, and always unpredictable. Their experiment was as much about themselves as it was about their creation. The quantum computer that housed Ramses's world was not just one simulation, it was a metaverse, a vast network of interconnected realities. It contained countless parallel worlds, each one a different experiment. In one simulation, the dinosaurs still roamed the earth. In another, the Roman Empire never fell. Each world was a digital copy of a moment in Earth's history, meticulously recreated from genetic and historical data. The machine was a library of life, a digital ark preserving the ghosts of the past. The Ra could move between these worlds, observing the endless possibilities of history playing out in different ways. It was a project of breathtaking scale and ambition. Within these simulations, not every inhabitant was a cloned consciousness like Ramses. Many were NPCs, non-player characters. These were simple programs designed to populate the world and perform specific tasks. The slaves building the monuments in Ramses's Egypt, the merchants in the market, even some of the soldiers in his army, they were NPCs. They had no true consciousness, no inner life. They were part of the scenery, designed to make the world feel real and complete. They followed their scripts without question, their existence a perfect loop. This was why Ramses saw such strange, repetitive behavior. He was surrounded by puppets, and he was beginning to sense the strings. The distinction between the cloned individuals and the NPCs was a crucial part of the experiment. The Ra wanted to see how a real consciousness, a person with genuine memories and a sense of self, would behave in a world that was largely artificial. How would Ramses, a man of immense ego and power, react to the discovery that many of his subjects were not real? Would his sense of identity crumble? Would his purpose as a leader change? These were the metaphysical questions at the heart of their work. They were exploring the very nature of what it means to be human, to be real, in a world where reality itself was a construct. The complexity of it all was staggering. The quantum computer was constantly running calculations, maintaining the integrity of thousands of different worlds at once. It managed the digital DNA of every cloned creature and the behavioral scripts of every NPC. It rendered the light of a billion simulated stars and the feeling of the wind on Ramses's face. This immense power allowed the Ra to create realities that were indistinguishable from the real thing. But it was not perfect. Sometimes the system would lag. Data would be corrupted, a glitch would appear, and for a mind as sharp as that of Ramses II, these small imperfections were clues, breadcrumbs leading him toward an impossible truth. Ramses's journey was no longer just about ruling his kingdom. It was now a personal quest, a search for an answer to a question that haunted his waking moments. Why did his world feel so hollow? He began to travel the length of his lands, from the fertile delta in the north to the great temples of Abu Simbel in the south. He hoped that by exploring the far reaches of his domain, he could escape the sense of unease that clung to him in the capital. He spoke with priests, with soldiers, and with common farmers. He was searching for something real, something that did not feel scripted or preordained, but the further he went, the more he found the same strange patterns. During his travels, the strange phenomena became more frequent and more pronounced. One day, while inspecting a quarry, he watched a massive block of stone being cut from the cliff face. For a moment, the stone became transparent, and he could see the desert landscape right through it. The workers around him did not react. They continued their labor as if nothing was wrong. Another time, he was sailing on the Nile when the water suddenly turned a perfect, unblinking silver, reflecting the sky with impossible clarity. It lasted only a few seconds before returning to its normal muddy brown. These events were no longer subtle, they were direct violations of the laws of nature as he knew them. He started to believe he was being tested by the gods, or perhaps he was being punished. He ordered more sacrifices, more elaborate ceremonies. He prayed for clarity, for a sign that he could understand. He asked the gods to reveal their purpose. But the heavens remained silent. The priests offered him the usual interpretations, that these were omens of great fortune or divine displeasure. But their words felt empty, their rituals powerless. Ramses felt increasingly isolated. He was the only one who seemed to see the cracks in reality. He was a king in a kingdom of dreamers, and he was starting to suspect that he too was part of the dream. His suspicion led him to the most sacred and secret places in his kingdom. He descended into the tombs of his ancestors, searching for forgotten knowledge. He climbed to the tops of the highest pyramids, hoping to get closer to the gods. In these quiet, lonely places, he would sometimes feel a strange presence, a sense that he was being watched not by the gods of Egypt, but by something else. It was a cold, analytical gaze, devoid of emotion. It was the feeling of being an insect under a magnifying glass. He did not know it, but he was feeling the observation of the Ra, the engineers who were tracking his every move, fascinated by his dawning awareness. The engineers, the Ra, watched Ramses' quest with growing interest. His progress was a topic of constant debate in their control rooms. He is becoming self-aware faster than the projections indicated, one engineer noted. Her voice a mix of excitement and concern. His mind is resisting the simulation's parameters. Another engineer, a senior member of the project, leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing Ramses praying in a silent temple. "That is the point of the experiment," he said. "We chose him for his strength of will. We want to see how a powerful identity confronts an existential crisis. Let him continue his search. Do not interfere directly." But not all of the engineers agreed. Some of the younger members felt a sense of connection to their creation. They saw Ramses not as a data point, but as a person, even if he was a clone. One of them, a man named Kale, often argued for more direct interaction. "We are like gods to him," Kale would say. "Is it not a god's duty to guide his creation, to offer a sign?" He believed they had a moral responsibility to Ramses. On occasion, Kale would subtly bend the rules. It was he who had caused the Nile to turn to silver. A small, beautiful glitch designed not to frighten, but to inspire wonder, to push Ramses to look beyond the obvious. These subtle interactions were like whispers from the heavens. Ramses would find an ancient scroll in a tomb he had visited many times before, a scroll that was not there yesterday. The text would speak of worlds within worlds, of creators who watch over their creation. It was a piece of data inserted into the simulation by a sympathetic engineer, or, during a sandstorm, the swirling sands would momentarily form a perfect, complex geometric shape before collapsing back into chaos. These were not random glitches. They were deliberate nudges, designed to guide the pharaoh's thoughts toward the truth without revealing the full picture. The Ra would also sometimes enter the Metaverse themselves in the form of ordinary Egyptians. An old fisherman might share a strange story with the pharaoh about a star that fell from the sky and spoke in a language of light. A young woman in the market might ask him a philosophical question about the nature of dreams and reality. These encounters were carefully designed to plant seeds of doubt and curiosity in Ramses' mind. He did not know that he was speaking to his creators. To him, these were just strange but insightful conversations with his subjects, but each one was another step on his path, another piece of the puzzle falling into place. As Ramses delved deeper into the mysteries of his world, the very foundations of his identity began to shake. He was Ramses II, the mighty pharaoh, son of Seti I, builder of great temples, and victor of the Battle of Kadesh. These were the memories that defined him. They were his truth. But what if they were not his alone? What if his memories were just a copy, a story given to him? The idea was terrifying, a form of madness. Yet the more he observed the artificial nature of his world, the more plausible this impossible thought became. If his world was not real, could he be real? This existential dread began to affect his role as a king. How could he lead his people if he suspected they were not real people? How could he dispense justice in a world where actions might not have real consequences? He looked at the faces of his court, his family, his subjects, and he saw them differently now. He saw the programmed loops of the NPCs, the empty stares, the scripted conversations. He felt a profound loneliness, a separation from everyone around him. His crown, once a symbol of his power and divine right, now felt like a prop in a grand play. The weight of it was no longer the weight of responsibility, but the weight of illusion. His destiny, he had always believed, was to be the greatest pharaoh in the history of Egypt, to leave a legacy that would last for eternity. This belief had driven his every action. But what was destiny in a world that was pre-designed? Was his journey his own, or was it a path laid out for him by the unseen forces that controlled his reality? Was his drive to seek answers part of the experiment? The questions circled in his mind, robbing him of sleep. He was a man of action, a warrior and a builder. But this was a battle that could not be fought with swords or chariots. It was a battle for the soul, for the very definition of the self. Despite his inner turmoil, he continued to play the part of the pharaoh. He had to maintain order for his own sake as much as for the simulations. But his actions were now infused with a new purpose. He was no longer just ruling a kingdom, he was testing its boundaries. He would issue strange commands just to see how the system would react. He would ask his advisors questions about philosophy and the nature of existence, probing for any sign of genuine thought. He was unknowingly engaging in a dialogue with his creators. His quest for meaning had turned him into an experimenter in his own right, pushing against the walls of his digital cage. The world of ancient Egypt, so carefully constructed by the Ra, began to show more and more of its artificial nature to Ramses's discerning eye. He noticed that the shadows cast by the Great Pyramids sometimes fell at the wrong angle, correcting themselves a moment later. He saw that the stars in the night sky, which he knew so well, were a perfect, repeating pattern, never changing from one year to the next. The illusion was beautiful, a masterpiece of design. But it was an illusion nonetheless. The Nile, the lifeblood of his kingdom, flowed with perfect predictability. The annual flood always arrived on the same day, rising to the exact same level. There was no chaos, no unpredictability, no true nature. He started to see the world not as a physical place, but as a set of rules, a system. He realized that the farmers were not planting seeds, they were initiating a script called planting. The priests were not praying to the gods, they were running a program called worship. He was the only one, it seemed, who could deviate from the script. This realization was both empowering and terrifying. It meant he had a unique form of freedom, but it also confirmed his profound isolation. He was a conscious mind adrift in a sea of code. The vibrant tapestry of his kingdom was, in reality, a flat and lifeless program. One day he commanded his chariot and rode out into the desert, alone. He rode for hours, pushing further and further into the barren wastes, away from the simulated life of the Nile Valley. He wanted to find the edge of his world. He wanted to see what lay beyond the boundaries of the map. As he traveled, the landscape became simpler, less detailed. The sand dunes became more uniform, the rocks less varied. It was as if the creators had not bothered to put as much effort into these remote areas. Finally, he reached a place where the world simply ended. It was not a cliff or an ocean, it was a shimmering wall of light, a place where the simulation ceased to exist. He stood before this wall, this boundary of his reality, and stared into it. It was a curtain of pure information, a cascade of numbers and symbols that flickered too fast for the human eye to comprehend. It was the raw code of his universe. He reached out a hand, his fingers trembling, and touched the surface. It felt like static electricity, a hum of immense power. For the first time, he was not just suspecting the truth, he was seeing it. The world was a cage, a beautiful and intricate cage, but a cage all the same, and he was standing at its very edge, looking out into the void. The gods were not in the sky. They were outside the walls. Standing before the shimmering wall that marked the end of his world, Ramses was filled with a sense of awe and terror. Everything he had ever known, every belief he had ever held, was now called into question. The gods he worshipped, the kingdom he ruled, the very air he breathed. It was all part of an elaborate construction. He was a king with no true kingdom, a man with borrowed memories. He was a ghost, brought back to life inside a machine of impossible power. The whispers from the heavens, the glitches in reality, his entire journey, it had all been leading to this moment of revelation. He looked back at the path he had traveled, the endless desert stretching back toward the Nile. From this perspective, he could almost feel the presence of the engineers, the watchers in the sky. He could sense their observation, their curiosity. They were the true gods of this place, the Ra who had built this sun and this sand. They had given him life, but they had also trapped him in this illusion. Was he their prisoner, or was he their masterpiece? He did not know whether to feel anger or gratitude. He was an experiment, a subject of study, but he was also Ramses, and his will was still his own. He turned back to face the wall of light. The final answer was just beyond it. The truth of who he was and why he was here lay on the other side of that curtain. His destiny was not to rule Egypt, but to understand the nature of his own existence. This was his true battle of Kadesh, a fight not against the Hittites, but against the limits of his own reality. He felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. The fear was gone, replaced by a powerful resolve. He was a pharaoh, he was a god on earth, and he would not be contained by any cage, whether it was made of stone or of light. With a deep breath, he took a step forward. He did not know what would happen. Would he be deleted? Would he wake up in another world, or would he finally meet his creators face to face? The outcome was uncertain, but the path was clear. His journey was not over. It was just beginning. He was Ramses II the Great, and he was stepping out of his history and into a new, unknown future. The final truth remained just out of reach, but for the first time in his second life, he felt truly free, ready to confront the gods of the Quantum Metaverse.